Joining us now on the program is Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic, for a weekly mental health conversation that we have with her each and every Thursday on the program. Carrie, thanks for being with us again today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on with us. This week, let's talk about a really interesting dynamic that happens often in people's dating life, and it's called pocket dating. I'm not familiar with this term, so if you could briefly just explain what this term is and how it can have an effect on people's mental health and, of course, on the way they approach their relationships.
Sure. So pocket dating or pocketing is sort of a, new slang term for something that probably has been around for a while, but it's when someone sort of keeps you in their back pocket or, kind of hides you in their pocket, meaning that you may have a very what feels like serious dating relationship, but they are concealing that relationship from the rest of their world. So not introducing you to parents or coworkers or friends, keeping their sort of the rest of their personal life separate from this dating relationship.
Well, clearly in a situation like that, Carrie, there's some blockage or there's some concern that hasn't been addressed from that person to the person that they're dating or about that person that they're dating that they're trying to figure out. So what are some of those common motivations or what may be the common motivations behind somebody pocketing, so to speak, somebody they're dating?
So I think first and foremost, it probably isn't always a bad thing. If you're the
Okay.
receiver of being pocketed, there's a chance that you might feel somehow shame or insecurity that you're so not good enough to be introduced to the friends or family, but just as likely could be the reverse, right? That the person is feeling protective of you in the relationship and not sure that they would be supported by the people in their personal life. So certainly, probably anxiety is one of the most common reasons. Uncertainty, certainly if there are other failed relationships or if there's family expectations about marriage or things like that, they may be trying to protect you and themselves and the relationship from those pressures. Certainly, there's probably some more selfish reasons. Like I said, the sort of keeping you in the back pocket, meaning, is there some ambivalence about the relationship? Are they perhaps dating other people and kind of keeping you selfishly on the hook for a rainy day, which would also be exceptionally hurtful, especially when the feeling is not mutual. So, like on the positive side, if two partners in a relationship and agree for the same reasons. We want to keep this private. We don't want the influence of other people in our personal lives. Let's together agree to sort of stay in our little enclave with our relationship. When two people come to a shared conclusion, shared meaning, then it's sort of an okay behavior in the relationship.
And so for those that are also, and again, going back to those that would be in this case pocketing somebody that they're dating, as you said, it may be for protection of that relationship they have with this person, or protecting them maybe from some of the judgment of others in their lives that they're not entirely sure would be welcoming to them just yet. And one of those scenarios that I would think this would be common in is someone that is maybe in their first relationship that is not as outside of what have historically been societal norms, but have
Sure.
become much more normative in recent times, like someone that's maybe having someone that's maybe in the LGBTQ plus community. That is that a community of people where pocketing may be maybe more common than in other areas and other communities in our society.
Sure, I don't know the incidents, but I'm certain that that would play a role if there was some anxiety about, say, for example, coming out in your personal life. If you weren't ready to do that, certainly introducing the dating partner would be the flag that like the rest of your family would know. And if you weren't out, you would probably be more likely. Now, certainly in LGBT relationships, just like any others, there are hurt feelings. Some people are in different places, like you said, in their sort of outness and their readiness. And so, in a relationship, I think one of the best things you can do is instead of coming accusatory, instead of pointing the finger and say like you're hiding me and these are the reasons why, or you're weak and you're not standing up for us or our relationship, instead to come from a place of curiosity and compassion, right? What's driving this? Like, this is what I'm noticing. This is how I'm taking it. Am I right or wrong to take it this way? And be sort of gentle with your observations will certainly be more well received. And in the relationship, if there's sort of communication, then that would be right, an opportunity to get on the same page and maybe perhaps create a plan together about moving forward. Not an ultimatum like you need to tell your family about me by Christmas or something. That's not going to go well. But just gently like, look, like I'm ready for our relationship to be more known to the people in my life and yours. Like, what's our plan for how to make that happen?
And especially early on, that communication, as far as these relationships branching out to other areas of your social life and certainly your family life too, are really key. And so in this scenario, I would imagine in these sorts of scenarios, I would imagine too, it's really important to, if those alarm bells are going off for you on the other side, if you're the person in this case being quote unquote pocketed by this person you're involved with, to try to investigate and with that person figure out what is the motivation behind this. Is there motivation behind this, or is this just simple nerves that we can maybe work through and figure something out? For those that may be in this case being pocketed, uh, how might this affect them and their approach to this relationship if that communication hasn't been there? But if that communication is there and maybe they're not being introduced for one reason or another, how could it potentially affect them and their approach to this other person that they've become much more involved with?
Sure. I mean, I think like so often in dating, the present dating culture I call very like disposable, right? It's almost like, if you're dating multiple people and if one doesn't work out, you just kind of like return and, order, like I call it like fast fashion. It's like buying something on Amazon. And you're like, oh, don't like it, send it back, try something new. And so I think people are very anxious in their dating relationships. They feel very fragile, right? Is it like, I want to be dating, I want to be finding a partner, but at any point is a sign that this is no good, then either I have to go back to the well or they do. So I do think that when people want to sort of talk about these deeper things, they feel so anxious. They feel that any conversation has the potential to just break the whole house of cards down, which is really disappointing because, of course, it's those same conversations that really build the foundation of a healthy relationship. Certainly, because people who are dating in this present dating culture too have had these like frequent and repeated rejections, even if they can also agree the relationship wasn't good for them. They just don't like the feeling. And so, even feeling like you're being pocketed may evoke hurt, shame, anxiety, all these things that might increase your intensity. So I would certainly say in the moment that like a person's, maybe you get the indication and you're feeling kind of intense anger, frustration about it, is probably not the moment to discuss it. Probably in a time when things are calm and private, is like, hey, what's going on here? What's happened in your past relationships? How has introducing dating partners been in your family or friends? Or, what have you seen? Have your siblings introduced someone and it went terrible? And is that what's holding you back? Use these as a time really to get to know someone, and also get to know for yourself if this is a relationship you want to be in or not. I mean, if the person's approaching you with defensiveness and excuse and you're getting that behavior over and over, there's a good chance that like perhaps this is indicative of their behavior and not just about the issue of pocketing.
And those alarm bells start to go off, and it's not necessarily something that means you need to be running and escaping from this relationship. That seems to be, in some cases, the status quo today. That's a point to make that conversation happen, and to have sometimes those tougher conversations, but like maybe those tough to initiate conversations with your partner and address these issues. I would imagine too, in some cases, people would prefer to be pocketed for a little while after they enter these relationships, especially when today we do see also with the advent of social media and how critical that plays a role both in initiating dating in modern society, but also in the way that it is portrayed outward from these relationships to other connections in people's lives, that you may want to wait, and people that you're with may want to wait a little bit before they are presented as having that connection with you, to make sure that they are actually going to be in your life and not just the person that pops up and when you're done with them, you're done with them.
Right. Right. And so often nowadays too, I think the best thing is having communication about like sort of the kind of dater you are and sort of your kind of dating identity, what's happened to you before and what your plans for dating are. Is it sort of casual? Are you looking for something serious? Because I think like you said too, I mean, it's very easy also to get outed in term not just, as a person in the community, but outed as, I mean, you could tell someone you're not dating and then you're appearing in social media pictures with someone or whatever else. There's lots of opportunities for assumptions and conclusions to be drawn. The best opportunity, like I said, would be to go in with a situation with curiosity, so that you can build that like sort of trust and sensitivity for the person and decide if this person's presenting to you honestly where they're at, is that who you want to be with? If they're telling you where they're at and they're kind of showing you with their behavior and that's not for you, then it's a perfect opportunity to say, look, like I think we want different things, which is absolutely okay.
Joined by Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at Birmingham Maple Clinic. On today's edition of the Megacast, you can get more information and get in contact with the professionals at the Birmingham Maple Clinic by visiting their website at birminghammaple.com. Birminghammaple.com is their website for more information, as well as to schedule consultations and appointments. Carrie, not every relationship begins or becomes that official long-term thing or even medium-term thing at the same time or follows that same path. So for those that are entering into these relationships or feel like they're about to enter into a longer standing relationship, when should they be initiating these sorts of conversations about when are we an outward thing and when is this not between the two of us, and or address these issues that they may have with either pocketing somebody or being pocketed?
So I would say that like intimacy and vulnerability are something that should grow over the course of a relationship. So certainly revealing your anxieties or intentions is going to feel pretty deep early on. But I think so it's probably just like in small, gentle ways, almost like I don't know, like Hansel and Gretel, like breadcrumbs along the way, is like kind of stringing things from one event to the other. So it's not just a one and done conversation. You may start it in a little bit, and then there might be another opportunity to say, hey, look, about this thing you said the other day, it made me curious about this, and kind of just continuing to sort of leapfrog it forward, little leaps at a time. Going too hard, too soon, too fast is going to be overwhelming to the other person, and withholding altogether is inauthentic too. So little bite-sized pieces, little opportunities to reveal something about yourself and ask something about them. That kind of reciprocity, that kind of back and forth, is really the foundation of intimacy and connection.
And once you have made those decisions or you've had those conversations and come to some sort of consensus or compromise on where you're at with your relationship, how you are presenting that relationship to other people in your life, your family, your friends, the communities that you're involved in, what are your suggestions for these individuals then and these couples then to continue those conversations as they get going? Because once you're out and about and this is something that's out in your small community and your connected community, it's something that continues to evolve. Those conversations should continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes I use the analogy of like, our life is a little bit like climbing up a spiral staircase. Sometimes we feel like we've come to the same place, but we're there a little bit different, perhaps from a little bit different perspective than we were once before. So yeah, even I would consider, that like, right, we may have had this experience before, perhaps you didn't introduce me to your coworkers early on, but now we're in a different environment and you didn't introduce me again. Was it the same reason? Was it something about the person? Was it something about me? Kind of revisit it. You can connect it to the same thing, like how is this time different than before, or what's happening now that makes this behavior make sense. Like before, you weren't introducing me because we weren't serious enough. You didn't want your overzealous family to like lob onto a relationship. but now we are serious and you're still not introducing me. Is it the same reason or is it something else now? And see if you can come up, I think, with like shared meaning. I think the most damaging thing in the relationship is when one person is exacting decisions, when one person is making the choices, when one person is deciding what will be done and how, then there's a real power differential between the people. Then one person is sort of held hostage to the other person's will. And it really needs to be shared to be a healthy relationship, anyways.
You can get in contact with Carrie and the other professionals at the Birmingham Maple Clinic by visiting their website, birminghammaple.com. It's birminghammaple.com for more information, as well as how you can schedule a free consultation, get in contact with them and their professionals as well. Carrie, a couple more minutes with you before we'll need to move on today. Anything else on this issue that we haven't discussed that would be important for our audience to keep in consideration?
I think that one of the biggest challenges of dating in the present day too is that there seem to be a high anxiety about time. That like if we're in a relationship that isn't necessarily satisfactory, then we're wasting our time. And that hurriness and impatience, I think, is not really good for a fundamental of a relationship. And that even if a relationship is somehow unsuccessful or doesn't yield the long term goals that you had, perhaps don't consider it a waste. Consider it an opportunity to exercise some of these skills, to learn more about what you want and how to discuss it with other people, and take that pressure of time off yourselves and the other person. It's just really not helpful and does not create a calm environment for a relationship to grow.
Carrie, I always appreciate you joining us and diving deeper into some of these different issues, and appreciate your insight.
Thank you so much for having me.